Computer on.
We go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
We are a rescue team, not assassins. Now, what do we gotta do?
In a part of the world where there are no rules.
We pick up their trail at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages before anybody knows we were there. What do you mean, we?
Deep in the jungle, where nothing that lives is safe.
You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. Showtime, kid. Knock, knock.
An elite rescue squad
You're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed.
is being led by the ultimate warrior.
We need the best. That's why you're here.
But now,
What's got Billy so spooked?
there's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man. They're up against the ultimate enemy.
Holy Mother of God.
Nothing like it has ever been on Earth before.
She says the jungle just came alive and took him.
We cannot see it.
No blood, no bodies. We hit nothing.
But it sees the heat of our bodies and the heat of our fear.
Whatever it is out there, it killed Choppa. And now it wants us.
It kills for pleasure.
He was skinned alive!
It hunts for sport.
He's killing us one at a time.
We're all gonna die.
But this time, it's picked the wrong man to hunt.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
20th Century Fox presents Arnold Schwarzenegger. Predator. The hunt begins Friday, June 12th at theaters everywhere.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your Mission Commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, get to the Choppa! That's right, we're going to be talking about Predator, Predator 2, Predators, Aliens and Predators. You name it, we're talking it. Straight away, let's kick it up to the satellite. Walker, what do you got for us?
Well, you know, I love this movie. I love the first Predator. We'll have a lot to say about all the different Predator movies, but the 87 Predator is just a classic. And, you know, I think we all, you know, appreciate it a great deal. And there's a lot of interesting stuff behind how the film got made. Initially, it was going to be called Hunter. Mm-hmm. And the concept came from two brothers, Jim and John Thomas. They wrote the original script, and they were just, you know, sitting around thinking, like, what would be a great story? And they came up with sort of that idea from, like, the old story, The Most Dangerous Game, and kind of twisted it around and said, well, what if you had, you know, an alien coming to Earth to hunt the most dangerous game? And, well, what would the most dangerous game be? Well, it would be, you know, a combat soldier. So they shopped the script around, and eventually Joel Silver, the producer, who, you know, he was all over the place in the 80s and 90s. He latched on to that project and was the one who got it made. You know, and it's an interesting film because it's sort of a bunch of different genres all at the same time, or in consecutive times. It starts out kind of as an action movie. I mean, you know, watching it, you could almost imagine it being, another version of Commando, another one of Arnie's action films. But then, it takes that turn into sort of sci-fi and horror, and it does it in a really organic way. It doesn't feel forced. Some interesting things about the film, now we look at the Predator and it's such an iconic character design, but there's, a lot of behind the scenes stories with that too. There was a completely different design for the character originally, a completely different group of effects guys. Steve Johnson and Boss Film Studio were the first group of guys that were working on the design for the Predator, and they were kind of handed these concept art that had sort of an insect/reptile features. One of the key things about this original concept art was that the creature had these sort of backward jointed legs. So they were being asked to build this thing that was really impractical for like a man in a suit to wear in the jungle. You think about this kind of backward hinged legs, and yet they were expecting somebody in this suit to like run around, climb up hills, do all this stuff. And they told the producers, the directors, everybody, like, look, this is probably not going to be practical. We're probably not going to be able to do this. But they did build a suit pretty much to the specifications of the artwork they had been given. And when they wound up putting somebody in it who was actually, you guys know who the first person to wear the suit was?
Wasn't it Dolph Lundgren?
Oh, close. It was Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's right. But he was like, I read he was like 5'9".
Yeah, so this was another thing that was just like, why, when you've got a cast full of these 6-foot+ muscle men, are you going to put a 5'9" guy in a suit? So there were a lot of sort of miscalculations initially. Jean-Claude Van Damme totally misunderstood the role he was going to have. He thought he was going to be able to show off his martial arts skills against Schwarzenegger, and instead he winds up in this sort of giant ant suit. So he was really disgruntled. He was supposed
to be like a ninja alien type of thing, wasn't it? I mean, that's why they put Van Damme in there.
Yeah, you're not going to do much ninja stuff with kind of stilt legs, backward stilt legs. So he hated the suit. The director, John McTiernan, hated the suit. Nobody was happy with the suit. And it's really not a dig against the guys who worked on the suit, because if you see the photos of it, they basically did what they were asked to do. But it just didn't work. So interesting thing was that they initially wanted to bring in Rick Baker to do a redesign, but he was busy on another film. So Arnold says, no, I know this guy. You got to bring him in. And that's how Stan Winston came in. And that's how we got the suit that we all recognize today.
But Arnold, does he know how to build suits? Yeah, he did this movie Gargoyles. He's fine.
He's my friend. He's very good at his suits. No problem. So that was kind of the twisted path that they took. They had to shut down filming for a while, and Winston's crew was already working on another film at that time, so they had to split the crew because they had to finish the Monster Squad.
Right.
But they had, I think, something like 6 weeks to really get it done, so they were busting their buns to mold the suit. I mean,
the amount of time that they had from not even concept but to completion, and God love the folks that put Monsterpalooza together. We were at the show when they had folks who worked on the Predator film, talking about when the first costume showed up, the director, and they were all like, oh shoot. Oh boy. And it was just really insightful to hear. The cast wasn't there, but they had behind the scenes folks who did the special effects and stuff, and it was fun and insightful. But yeah, it's kind of funny to think what we could have gotten for a Predator. Obviously this is all before CGI, so it was, come up with the good foam suit. And what they did has become iconic as any of the other monsters, in sci-fi or horror.
Well, right. It was amazing. I mean, the mask itself with the mandibles
right. Yeah.
I guess they kind of had to outdo Alien, because Alien had like the two mouths and the extending jaws, and so they did the mandibles with the Predator, and I mean, there was obviously no CG in that film.
Right.
I was reading where for the effect where they had camouflaged alien or invisible alien, they put a guy in a red suit because red was the only color that was like way different than the green of the jungle and the blue of the sky, and shot it that way, and then matted him out, and then shot the background like again, and made this kind of, that's why it's kind of like a multi-plane type of effect. But there was like no CG whatsoever in this movie.
Right. And it's interesting you mentioned Alien, Bob, because at one point when they got back the footage of the original creature and they were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? They briefly thought about, could we just put the alien from Alien in this movie and use that as the Predator? And then we'll redesign it. But they did think about it for a second. But I think it stands right up there. The Predator stands right up there with, in my pantheon, it's right up there with Creature from the Black Lagoon and Alien as some of the best man in suit designs.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, if this was made like in the 50s, they'd borrow the suit in a second. There were suits and masks and everything else that just floated from film to film back then.
Would have been cool to be a fly on the wall, and it's like, okay, this Van Damme alien suit didn't work. What are our options? Well, you got the H.R. Geiger alien, you got the E.T. alien, the Spielberg. We got the Schwarz from Close Encounter. No, maybe.
Well, the film was made for like $15 million, which by today's standards is like minuscule. It was actually a pretty good budget for then.
And I think it helps that you had somebody like Kevin Peter Hall in this suit. I mean, one, he's just physically impressive, being like 7'2", but the guy really knew how to get across personality in the Predator. You get a sense that there's something there that's not just an animal or a monster, but that there's some intellect and some sense of a being there. And I think that was another thing when Stan Winston came on. He recognized that they needed to create a character, not just a monster. And so they wanted to show the eyes. So that Arnold would have somebody to play against and not just have a sort of a mindless monster to go against.
Yeah, those little beady eyes, I tell you, they're pretty damn creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know.
And the mottled skin and everything. It's almost like a perfect design.
Mm-hmm.
And, you had guys who now are pretty well known, like Steve Wang, Matt Rose, who did the sculpts and the paint and everything. But back then were young guys just kind of making their names.
Well, that was the thing about Stan Winston. Even today he's got his Stan Winston School of Effects, and he was always good about bringing in talent and grooming that talent and using them, on the films and on the projects.
I mean, that guy had a hand in almost everything: Terminator, Predator, Gargoyles, Monster Squad. The list goes on and on. I mean, I can't say enough good things. And you made a good point. These guys weren't really that well known. I mean, other than Stan, but now they're like icons in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, even back then, the main players were like Stan Winston and Rick Baker, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Up to that point, so. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that really struck me, I was fortunate enough to have time to watch the movie again today. The diverse cast that they had, it shouldn't work, but it does, and it works so well. Jesse the Body Ventura, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, yeah.
Carl Weathers. I mean,
Billy Duke.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very cool. There's a lot of steroids in that movie and a lot of testosterone flying around, but it was good. Yeah, I really enjoyed the cast. Yeah, even though obviously I can't really connect with them. I don't have those kind of muscles, but there aren't really characters you can put yourself into. But yeah, it's.
Well, and one of the things that I noticed when they, sorry, Karen, just real quickly, when they in the beginning of the film they get out of the chopper. One has a polo shirt on. One has a suit and tie.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, they all have these different styles in their personal lives, and it could be a throwaway scene of like 5 seconds, but it was very insightful for that moment that it was on screen, because they get off the chopper, they meet Carl Weathers and I forget the guy that played the general, his name, but then they get all like commandoed out, and even. They got commandoed out. Each had their own specific style of weapon or dress going into not battle, but going into the jungle, I guess.
Well, they were originally sent in there on a rescue mission, right? And then it turns out that it's not really a rescue mission. It was find out what killed the last crew that went in there.
Well, they were getting intelligence.
It was intelligence because Carl Weathers worked for the CIA, so it was under the pretense that, we brought you in here, Dutch, to help with info gathering. Yeah, and then these little things start happening once they touch down, and he's like, "What's going on here?" So it's like, is this like not a murder mystery, but a mystery? Is it going to be kind of like a war? When the first time you saw it, it was kind of like, well, what's going on? Why is it Predator? Could it be that the enemies are the Predator? And then, they come to the enemy camp and all heck breaks loose once the Predator shows up with the little, that's the other thing too that was very iconic was the, is it a chatter or I can't even quantify the sound that the Predator makes. But we do have crows in my neighborhood, and I swear they sound like a predator the way they like beat their beak.
But getting back to the cast, I think that's one of the main reasons this movie is so successful and so rewatchable, is because a good part of the time in the beginning, you're just there with these characters.
Yeah.
You don't have the Predator on screen, and you're spending time with these characters. And even though they're basically, I don't know, either archetypes or stereotypes, depending on your point of view, I think they're interesting people, we kind of get a sense of who they are, what motivates them, characters like Mac, which is Bill Duke's character. He's really interesting in the way that he sort of carries himself, and especially after Jesse Ventura's character is killed. And you see, he had a connection to him, and how that impacts him. And then you have, Billy, who is the Native American character. Right. And it's very stereotypical, especially in like Vietnam movies and stuff, to have like, the Native American takes point because they're all great trackers and that kind of thing. Oh. But they sort of use it in this film to show like, in some ways he's sort of like the Predator in that he has a connection with his environment in a way that nobody else does. Right. So he has this heightened awareness, which is kind of spooky. And, they use that in the film to heighten the tension.
I was going to say the thing you brought up with Jesse Ventura getting killed. When Schwarzenegger's talking to him, he says, "Sergeant, he was a good soldier, and he turns around and he says, "He was my friend."
Mm-hmm.
And again, just, a minute worth of film, and it established that connection,
Yeah, I think it was well written. I mean, for what it is, like Bob says, yeah, it's full of testosterone, but I don't know. I came to like these characters, and yeah, certainly I can't carry some gigantic, machine gun around, but it's like I can empathize with them, especially when they start getting hunted. You can see the fear in their eyes, which is a real change from the beginning of the film.
Well, I mean, That's the thing. They're like an elite squad. But then when you come up and you see like skinned bodies hanging upside down from trees, it's a little shocking even for someone, a crew that is a squad that has probably seen it all.
Right.
Quote unquote.
Right. And they reacted that way too. It was like, like fear in their faces and their eyes,
Wasn't Carl Weathers, isn't he the first one to actually see the Predator? Not so much the physical presence, but the camouflaged version?
I think it was Mac.
Was it Mac? Okay.
I think it was Mac who saw it.
I believe it was Mac. But they all had their moment where they caught a glimpse of the Predator and its various forms of camouflage.
The camouflage was really cool. I liked the sort of concentric rings. It was an interesting way to do that. And what about Arnold? We haven't really discussed.
Wow.
Arnold? Our former governor?
Yeah. He had just come off of the Commando movie before this, right? So it was interesting that they would be like, okay, not that it was so much of a typecast, but, let's bring Arnold in and whatever that conversation was to convince him. I can't imagine anyone else playing that role.
Well, I was reading, like, when they first kind of came up with the concept, it was somebody, I think they had just released Rocky IV, and somebody joked, "Oh, God, what's Rocky going to fight in the next movie?" "Oh, he'll have to fight an alien, in the next one." And somebody, like, grabbed that idea and ran with it, and Sylvester Stallone was considered, but he was doing something else, and then, they ended up bringing Arnold in because he had just done Commando, and, what else did he have before this? Was Total Recall before this?
I think that came after.
Well, yeah, the Conan movies, I guess.
Yeah.
Conan would have been before this.
Yeah.
So Conan and when was Running Man?
Running Man was before this because that was the first film with Schwarzenegger and Jesse the Body Ventura.
All right. So he was obviously somewhat established anyway. So they ended up bringing him in when they could not get Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, and I like, there's a couple of, lines that he has. Schwarzenegger always has like a line, "I'll be back" from the Terminator. And one of the ones in this was at the end when he first sees I guess we'll wait till we get to the end of the film before I say that famous line. But something like, a throwaway line like "get to the chopper." And now I joke with Walker all the time, "Get to the chopper! Dylan, you son of a beep beep."
Pacing on this film is amazing too, because it's kind of like establish what's going on and then just nonstop for the rest of the film.
And I forget, guys, where did this show, where did this movie land on our top 10?
One moment, please. Number 9. It tied number 9 with Empire Strikes Back.
Number 9 with Empire. That's right.
Wow. So you guys consider this just as good as Empire Strikes Back?
Well, that was the consensus opinion.
Yeah.
Wow.
Funny how numbers work. But yeah, I mean, imagine what if they had cast Van Damme instead of Schwarzenegger and gave Schwarzenegger the alien role?
I don't think we'd be talking about this movie.
Well, it would just be another Van Damme film, right?
You're right. Just like we're not going to talk about Cyborg. which was a damn catastrophe.
There's some really bad memories.
Oh man, I tell you. But yeah, the funny, it really is a testament to the writers, the producers, the actors. They captured lightning in a bottle because, in my humble opinion, none of the other films ever came close to the well-balanced, well-acted, well-produced. I mean, you can argue maybe they have better special effects and, once CGI came into the picture and whatnot, but the dynamics in this film just blow me away to this day.
Oh, well, yeah, there's a lot of good action scenes in this film but I think it's all built up by the suspense, Mm-hmm. The scene where they all unload, they think they're unloading on the Predator, and they basically blast the jungle to pieces. And Schwarzenegger's fall over the cliff. Mm-hmm. Is really fun. And of course the final battle with the Predator is just really, really well done. There's so many. I guess even when they invade the village before they start fighting the Predator, that's just like a big over the top action. He's lifts the truck up off the blocks. And
they're all like, what is he doing?
Yeah, and you think, shooting in a jungle like that it would be hot and humid, but, Schwarzenegger said it was freezing cold. He was in the water, he was covered with mud, and I think he was 3 weeks in the mud while they were shooting the final battle. And they had big, lights and everything else just going just to warm up the area so they wouldn't freeze to death.
Hey, back in the day, there was no blue screen, no green screen, no, they were out there in the jungles.
Well, it was interesting, too, because they wanted to hire actors who had some sort of military training. Not every single one of them did, but a number of them had served in the military.
Well, Jesse Ventura was a former Marine.
Yeah. And the guy who played Poncho, he had been, I think, in either the Army or the Navy. Sonny Landham, I think, had served. Sonny Landham was apparently a maniac. They had to hire a bodyguard on the set, not to protect him, but to protect other people from Sonny. And they did, all this military training prior to filming to get them, so they could look like a cohesive team before they actually started filming.
There was a story that almost all of the cast and crew had gotten Montezuma's Revenge at one point in time while making the movie. And I think Schwarzenegger and someone else, they wouldn't eat any of the local food or drink any of the water. So Schwarzenegger might have gotten it a little, now that I think about it.
It might have been Carl Weathers that didn't want to eat the food.
Maybe it was Carl Weathers.
I could see that.
Oh, my God.
He also wanted them to think that his physique was he was born that way, because they would all get together at 3 a.m. and work out before they went out to shoot, as a group, Arnold and everybody else. He wouldn't. He'd sneak in after they were all done and do his workouts. But he wanted them to think that his physique just came naturally.
There's a lot of good material on the Blu-ray in the extras where they got them. I don't know. It was probably 10 or 15 years after they made the movie, and they talk about all this stuff. And it's well, of course, it was a bunch of guys. There weren't a bunch of women around, so they were all, trying to out-macho each other. And even one of the writers was saying, one day, Arnold got him and said, "Oh, come on, you got to work out with us, come on." And he's I almost died that day.
Don't be a sissy. Get over here.
Come on.
Don't be a girly man.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we talked a little bit about the end of the film and that iconic moment where Arnold, the Predator takes off the helmet. And even that, I mean, up to that point, we didn't know what the thing looked like. And he's taking off, and the little hose, the air, the smoke is, coming off. Takes off his weapon, pulls off the helmet, and then the mandibles. They're sitting there kind of like, pinching each other, and then he just opens up the maw and with the scream, and Schwarzenegger's like, "You're one ugly mother." Boop, boop.
It was a really effective reveal.
It was, and just the way that the Predator just like, spread his arms out like, let's get ready to rumble,
Up until then, I mean, when you saw the Predator at the beginning of the film, during the film, you didn't really consider that as a helmet. Say, oh, okay, that's what he looks like.
Right.
But then there's the next layer where he pulls it off, and then it's like, oh, okay, that was a... I mean, obviously in all the other films, it's a helmet, but in the initial film, they could have gotten away with just keeping him, like that the entire time without taking it off.
Right. That's a good point. It was cool. Very cool reveal. The Predator tries to blow Schwarzenegger to Kingdom Come. Schwarzenegger survives, just barely. And that the way that the movie ended, he's sitting in the chopper with the lady. She survived as well, and he's covered in ash, and he's just looking up, like he's spent. Like, what did he go? And then what always struck me strange, and even watching it again today, is at the end of the film, it's almost like watching like a sitcom or something, because the actors like swing around and face the camera like, hey,
the roll call.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
To say, we're not dead, we're alive. And Carl Weathers, he catches a gun and kind of looks at you like, hey, it was only Schwarzenegger who was serious, and he's like, they show his back and he just turns around like, I don't think he filmed that. I think that was from the film.
Yeah.
They just, captured it.
Like.
But
all they needed was a freeze frame as the music started in the film.
Yeah. I mean, I was joking around with my wife, and she had never seen Predator, and I says, well, it's kind of like Fantasy Island, but Mr. Rourke is an alien, and they're not there on vacation. They're there for the CIA. Couldn't compel her to watch it. So
I don't know about that, Larry. You might need to work on that one a little bit.
Bit of a
stretch. But what's funny is she was too lazy to get up and go into the other room, so she did watch Predator 2 with me. Are you guys ready to go to Predator 2?
One more thing.
Sure. Please.
The score by Alan Silvestri.
Oh, yeah.
How could I forget? Absolutely.
It has such wonderful percussion in it.
It does.
And it adds to the suspense so much.
It sets the mood. It sets the tone. It sets the pace. Just so well orchestrated, and it is an integral part of this film. Yeah, I agree with you, Walker.
I mean, it kind of switches back and forth between sort of what sounds almost like military march kind of music, and then sort of like jungle themed music.
Right.
Well, that was getting towards the end of music and films being like a main character along with everyone else.
Yeah.
Now the music is so subdued. It's like, you don't really remember much of it. But think back into the days of Predator, or even like Star Wars or whatever, and you come out humming the theme song, or you have music stuck in your head from certain scenes that you saw. You hear that track maybe on a soundtrack or something, and you immediately, all the visuals come rushing in. And now it's like, you hear something from a newer movie, and it's like, oh, what movie is that from? Could have been from one of 15 different films.
There's still some talent out there. But, Bob, when you say that, and I know we're talking about Predators, but Godzilla's theme, the military theme, some of the monsters, Monster Zero, Mothra, very distinct. And you walk away from the film humming those songs for the rest of the week.
Well, even like James Bond films.
The Bond films, that's a great example. For me, recently, it was The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2.
Well, I was going to say Michael Giacchino still does some incredible scores now, and Alan Silvestri. You know, recently he's done the Avengers and films like that. So
there you go.
And the Avengers kind of had their standout theme, but the rest of the music was somewhat subdued.
Yeah, I would say most of the Marvel films, there's not a lot there for me to walk out and remember. Although the guy, now I'm blanking on the name of the guy who did the score for Winter Soldier. But he does a really nice job. I want to say it might be Henry Jackman.
I think you're right.
Yeah, his scores are pretty recognizable.
Yeah, well, I like you said, Alan Silvestri. Earlier today you said you were listening to the theme or to the album Walker, and I'm like, I should do that too, but I opted to watch the film instead. Good stuff. All right, my friends. So, Predator 2, shall we?
Predator 2?
Sure. Now, I know they were offering Arnold big bucks to come back, but to this date, he has never come back to a Predator film.
And that is just too bad. Was it a money thing, or because he's done every single Terminator movie that they ever, put out to him, and some of those were some real stinkers. I mean,
yeah, but then in his place, you get Danny Glover.
Well, and see that whole story, with the if I were to, well, maybe we should save this for the end of the podcast. How would you have brought Schwarzenegger back into the Predator franchise? Me and my friend Jay talk about this all the time, so I have a lot of ideas and suggestions. But Gary Busey, Danny Glover, I'm like, wait a minute, weren't they in Lethal Weapon? And I think that's it's like, all these actors were in Lethal Weapon.
Mr. Joshua.
So, yeah.
But, well, I mean, it was interesting taking the Predator out of the jungle theme and bringing him into the concrete jungle.
There you go.
And
welcome to the jungle.
That's right.
Yeah,
we got fun and games.
It was LA, but do you think the film would have worked in Chicago or New York or San Francisco? Could that story have taken place in any of the concrete jungles? And
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in New York, you have some hard-boiled New York cop.
Could it took place in Hong Kong or Tokyo? I mean, but they decided L.A.
Use Jackie Chan.
Could have used Jackie Chan. The first Predator film is my absolute favorite, always will be. The second one had its moments. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as good. And I think as I watched it just recently, like I said with Jazz, I wasn't as critical of it as I was the first time I saw it. And I think I was expecting the Predator movie without Schwarzenegger, and this kind of had a different tone and a different story, to be sure. How did you guys feel?
Well, I mean, I think, for you, looking back on it, see, now you've got the subsequent films to compare it to, so probably makes it look better. But
absolutely.
No, I mean, I enjoyed Danny Glover's character. Even Gary Busey, he wasn't quite as Gary Busey as he would be later in life, but it was a fun romp. It was also kind of interesting that it was a precursor to Alien versus Predator, because when Danny Glover goes onto the Predator's vessel and he sees all the trophies there, one of the trophies is the alien, his head.
I had read that they just decided to throw that Easter egg in there. There was no idea.
Yeah, I'm sure they had no idea they were going to do it, but.
Right, and it was years later that they're like, hey, remember at the end of Predator 2 it struck me interesting how the government knew, because one of the things you thought of after the first movie, and like a small nuclear bomb basically going off in the jungles of South America, wouldn't the CIA sent Carl Weathers? He never came back. Did they debrief Dutch?
Mm-hmm. I think there were a lot of really interesting ideas for this, but I think, the execution was not quite there. There's good moments in it. It really lags, though, in the middle of the film. It really kind of drops a lot and then picks up right at the end when Harrigan, goes into that the meat packing plant or whatever, where they're trying to catch the predator, and all heck ensues.
And plus, it's not just Glover versus the Predator, because you've got all the gangs of L.A. or drug dealers and things all getting into it. I guess that gave the Predator something to focus on as he sees all the different people interacting and figuring out which ones are worthy prey and which aren't.
Right. He had choices.
What seemed kind of odd was that they set this movie just slightly in the future. They set it in 1997. They made it it was released in 1990, and they set it in 1997. So, like, the guns look just a little different, but, like, everything is basically looks, pretty normal. But, there's a few different things, and, like, they have a subway system, which pretty sure LA didn't have a subway system.
Not at that point, but I think parts of it does now.
And it also looked kind of borderline dystopian.
Yeah.
Well, but LA kind of
well, yes.
Yeah. I don't know. There's certain things, like you guys were saying. I like the idea that, the government is tracking these aliens. They know about it, and they're trying to, figure out what's going on. And that was really interesting. And some of the individual scenes with the Predator were kind of cool. But it just doesn't, like, gel together the way the first movie did. And I enjoyed Danny Glover to a degree. And Gary Busey is always pretty amusing.
Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton I thought was kind of wasted in this. I didn't feel like we really, I don't know.
Just when we started to get to know him, he gets wiped out.
Yeah. I would say this cast is not as entertaining as the cast of the first film.
No. I'll say, in looking back at this, I was impressed that they would put a leading man in a franchise like they were trying to launch, the Predator. It's the second film, and they gave it to an African-American actor, which was not very common back then. To be honest, it's not very common nowadays either. And I agree with you. I think Danny Glover did a really good job with what they gave him script-wise. Could the script have been tighter? Could it have been, a little more exciting or dynamic? Or yeah, maybe. You brought up a point. The actors, the supporting, nothing against them. They're fine actors. Just didn't have that lightning in a bottle that the first film had with the cast.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny when you're mentioning the cast, and Larry and I were talking a bit about Fear the Walking Dead before we started the podcast today. And Ruben Blades, who plays Daniel in Fear the Walking Dead, a very young Ruben Blades is in the film.
A very young, and he's a fine actor. I mean, Daniel is one of my favorite characters in Fear the Walking Dead. And he was kind of wasted on this too. I mean, he was Danny Glover's best friend, and then not even halfway through the film. I will say one of the most impressive deaths to me was Gary Busey basically getting like eviscerated and chopped in half, and it was definitely a rated R film. There was a lot more nudity in this one too, if I remember correctly.
Well, there were more women. Like anything more than one, was more. So
If I could say anything more than one, and they have to get naked.
There was the talk show host who was so obnoxious.
Morton Downey, yeah.
Oh.
Morton Downey, yeah. Why did they put him in this movie?
He was popular back then.
And he was obnoxious, so he fit in perfect.
Donahue was popular. He wasn't in the first Schwarzenegger film. I mean,
Donahue wasn't obnoxious.
Yeah. So the other thing too, I enjoyed the ending of the film. Actually, when he wounded the Predator and he had to use ceramic tile. I didn't know that he had to, but he did, and he patched himself up after Danny became very proficient with one of the weapons and was able to maim the Predator, cutting off his arm. The Predator heals himself, and anyway, at the end of the film, Danny betters the Predator, and there are more than one Predator on the ship. And they reveal themselves. And then, like Bob said, in the trophy room, you see all these, trophies that the Predator had gotten up to that point, skulls and beads, weapons, whatever. So it kind of made you jump back then, like, oh, that's an alien skull. Was it an alien skull? Did I see an alien skull?
Yeah.
I did. It was really exciting. And it was kind of cool that the elder Predator realizes what, Glover did, doesn't happen often, and gave him a trophy of his own, which was that, pistol from, the 1700s or 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it really kind of makes you think, like, how far back in time have these predators been coming down and hunting us?
Well, and see, that's the thing. They talk about the hot summer. It's very hot. In this film, Danny Glover's armpits were profusely sweat and or damp. I mean, he was wearing the open shirt.
It was so damn cold in that jungle. Let's heat things up.
Well, and it was supposed to be hot because the lady was talking about in this summer it's hotter in the jungle than ever before, and she kind of talked about the legend of the Predator without calling it a predator. So we finish up Predator 2, my friends. Any last tidbits or information we want to go over for Predator 2? Because we're going to go into Predator 3, if not.
Well, it wasn't even Predator 3. It was Predators.
Exactly. But before Predators, didn't they tug on that string and make the Alien versus Predator movie?
Yeah, AVP was in 2004.
And Predators was what, 2010?
Right.
2000. Okay. Well, so AVP, yours truly hasn't seen it for a while, so I'm going to be going by memory. You and Bob, I think.
No, I didn't get to watch either one of the Alien versus Predator films, so I haven't seen either one since they came out in the theaters. I do need to give them another look. All I remember really is that I liked the second one more than the first.
I remember being excited. We went to Comic-Con in San Diego, and they had a big mock-up of the Predator and the Alien kind of like facing off against each other on one side of the auditorium. The other side of the auditorium, they had an Optimus Prime truck set up there. So those are like the big movies, And I see the film, and correct me if I'm wrong, Walker, but it takes place in an Aztec temple in Antarctica.
I think it was Norway. I just rewatched it the other night.
And I'm like, what happened to the whole hot summer thing? But then I guess the aliens I don't know. Walker, why don't you go ahead and walk us through?
Yeah, I hadn't watched it in many a year, although I do have it on either DVD or Blu-ray. Yeah, you would think with a thing like this, Predators, Aliens, it's like chocolate, peanut butter. It should be a slam dunk. But it just, I don't know. For me personally, it's a very kind of dull, disappointing film. There are parts of it that were kind of interesting, kind of exciting, but I don't know. It's just kind of a mess. And it's just... they're trying to set up this whole history with, the Predators set up these temples, and they would, activate the xenomorphs by bringing in human sacrifice. So the xenomorphs would implant inside the humans, and, the full-grown xenomorphs the aliens would pop out, and then they would hunt them, and that was part of their, their rituals and stuff. But I don't know. It just I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It was kind of, I hate to say it was kind of boring, but it did become kind of boring at a point. There were some action scenes that were kind of fun. One thing that really threw me, though, the Predators in this, I think I mentioned to you, Larry, the other day we were talking, the original Predator, Predator 2, the Predator, of course, played by Kevin Peter Hall, is a tall, lean creature, still very formidable looking, but very lean. The Predators in AVP look like a bunch of linebackers. They look like they've been stuffing their faces, and they're just very husky, heavy fellows, so it kind of threw me. I don't know what to say. They just kind of threw it all together, and I think it's kind of a mess of a movie. If you can't even, sometimes you get these movies where you can sit and watch them, and that the plot is total bullcaca, but they're entertaining. I didn't even find this that entertaining, so I'll just leave it at that.
Well, to be honest, how many times have you actually been disappointed by Hollywood?
Today or
Oh, just in general over the years. But
it's sad because it had the potential. It should have been better than what they gave us. Look, Alien was a great movie. Aliens was as great as a movie. Terminator, great movie. Terminator 2, great movie. It's possible. They can do it. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. It's been done before. Look, we'll leave it at this. The ball was dropped on Aliens.
On Predators. Oh, Alien.
You mean
Predator.
AVP?
AVP. Sorry, Alien versus right. So then we get to the Predators film, or is it AVP Requiem? Let me just. Do you guys want to talk about AVP Requiem, or?
I have nothing to say about AVP other than I thought it was better than the first one. It's all a hazy memory from back in the past.
I felt bad for the little boy. He's hunting or fishing with his father, and it was just a mess.
Yeah, I don't really remember much about it. I saw it once, and that was enough for me.
Well, wasn't that the one where it had the hybrid alien predator, and that's the thing that went out? It was like
the Predalien.
Predalien. It almost seemed like a Jason Voorhees from space to me, is how I saw it.
Well, was Jason 10 out at that point?
Bob, I'm going to have to check.
Maybe there was some crossbreeding going on out there. Jason, aliens, predators, they're all just one big mass orgy.
You're right. And it might have been the same actor playing all of them, Walker. That's why he was more stocky and not as tall.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, kid. So
now we get to Batman Dead End, right?
Oh, thank you, Bob. You're right.
I meant to watch that, and I forgot.
Sandy Cholera.
That was for a fan-made film.
Yep.
Just the depiction of Batman, the depiction of the alien, and the depiction of Predator were all just spot on.
To this day, the quintessential comic book version of Batman was in that film.
I love that suit.
Yes.
So perfect.
The physique and just, the aches and the pains that he showed, great rendition of Batman on film.
But it also showed the toughness and the fighting skills of Batman.
Right.
For him to stand there and just go toe-to-toe with a Predator.
Yeah.
He doesn't have superpowers. He's got fancy gizmos in his utility belt, but he was right there,
skills.
giving it all.
Skills, and he's rich.
So we should probably, I'm sure a lot of listeners may not have seen Batman Dead End, so we should probably, it should still be on YouTube. We can maybe put a link in the show notes.
I think it is. Yeah, it's a good idea, Bob.
It's a lot of fun. I remember, I think the first place I saw it was probably like at Comic-Con. I remember seeing it at some convention.
I just remember somebody I worked with was saying how cool it was. Oh, this is so cool, so cool. And ended up giving me just like a CD, a DVD of it. And I watched it, and I was blown away. I was blown away. Much more blown away than Predator 2 or Predators.
Yeah, I think it's that movie and Troops. Batman Dead End and Troops is on my bootleg. The spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but the way that they depict the Joker and I want to say it was Walter Koenig's son.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, all right, yeah. I wish they would have just made a damn movie, because the thing is all of 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it's not very long.
It's too bad. Too bad.
No, that was fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. Well, and I think I think they said their concept for that came after looking at some of the Predator and Alien comics that I think it was Dark Horse was putting those out at the time.
Yeah,
those were good books too. So again, you could do Predator versus Alien in the comics, and they were great, but they just couldn't get the movie together.
Well, a lot of things I guess happen between concept and script, and if the studio gets involved and kind of screws things up.
This is true.
Like Bob said, Hollywood.
I would just chalk it up to being rushed.
Yeah.
Rushed to put it out. Hey, this is a cool idea. Get it out. I want this out by such and such a date.
Right. Okay, well, which of us has seen the Predators movie?
Oh, yes, I watched it.
I did.
What'd you guys think of it?
Did you watch it?
What's that, Bob?
Did you watch it?
I saw it when it first came out.
I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't go in there. I mean, I saw it in the theater when it came out, but I didn't really go into it with great expectations this time around, which is probably why I enjoyed it. But I just, heck, it starts with these guys just being dropped out of the sky, onto this planet or whatever. I guess this was the first time, I mean, aside from the end of Predator 2, this is the first time where you saw multiple predators out there, hunting prey and even having conflicts among themselves.
Well, the Predators 2, Gary Busey, Danny Glover. Okay, this one had Adrian Brody
and Lawrence Fishburne. Topher Grace was in there.
So I was like, okay. And
Topher Grace.
Topher Grace. Oh, you're right.
You're right. Grace.
And I don't know. It just
you can't see it on the podcast, but Karen is shaking her head. Shaking her head at Topher Grace. Danny Trejo is in it.
Danny Glover as a tough man, tough guy. Yeah. Adrian Brody, I never saw as like a.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the casting just didn't work for me.
Yeah, Danny Trejo was in it. Machete himself.
He didn't last very long.
No, he didn't.
He must have just been like. He must have told Robert Rodriguez, "Look, I just want to get paid. I'll work like 3 days."
Yeah.
When I saw this in the theater originally, I came out of there feeling like it was awfully gimmicky, but rewatching it this last week, I enjoyed it more than I did the first time. I think probably because I just lowered my expectations, a bit.
Just like Bob.
Well, yeah, because you know what you're getting into, I guess,
Sometimes
the second time
you
around.
have to do that.
I let myself enjoy the different predators. I mean, part of me looks at it and sees all these different predators, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, there's their toy line.
Yeah.
But,
and the predator dog.
Yeah, But on the other hand, it's sort of like, well, it's kind of cool to see different variations of, predators. You got the big berserker predator. You got the hunter with his dogs, and then I think the other one was like a falconer, or maybe that was the same one. I don't know. I couldn't keep it all straight. And then you've got the humans who are all variations on predators, right? Who are, you've got the Yakuza guy, you got the soldier, you got the other gangster guy. Even frickin' Topher Grace turns out to be, I guess, a serial killer or whatever his thing is. He's psychotic. So it was like, okay, it's interesting. I think the thing that kind of killed it for me is when they got to the Lawrence Fishburne part, everything just kind of stopped dead for a while. And it was kind of hard to keep with it. And then it just kind of plodded along, and then it picked up again. So I don't know. I'm trying to decide, do I like it better than Predator 2? I think they're kind of neck and neck for me. I don't know. I would agree, though, that Danny Glover is a more watchable main character than Adrian Brody.
I don't know if I liked it more than Predator 2, but I would say I enjoyed it more than Predator 2.
I don't know what that means.
It's funny because we were talking about Danny Trejo and his death and the way he was used. Man, that was right out of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right out of the Savage Curtain.
Yeah, Spock.
Help me, Spock. You're Lincoln, Kirk. Help me, Kirk. But yeah, no, he was there, and there, let's go save him. And yeah, he's just like a dead body sitting up in the middle of a field.
Do Kirk, do Spock, do Edith Bunker. Oh, watch ye. I don't know. God love you guys for comparing that movie to Predator 2. I mean, for all the faults that Predator 2 has, I mean, I don't know, Adrian Brody just and Topher Grace. No, like I said, I put Topher out of my mind. And I expected more from the Lawrence Fishburne character, and then that just kind of like went nowhere. I don't know. I just well, anything else to say about Predators? Because we're going to go from Predators to a Predator.
Not a Predator. The Predator.
The Predator.
The
boy,
Predator.
That is a bleep burger. I'm saving Bob the job of having to edit me.
Beep us out. Boy.
I didn't even watch that again because I just remembered how horrible it was the first time.
I never saw it in the theater, so I actually had to watch it for the first time.
Oh, you poor man!
Just this last week. But it was in the midst of the big flurry of Godzilla Fest that I had going on, so it was just kind of like watch it and be done with it. But
you're dedicated, my friend.
Well, I mean, I figure, hey, gotta watch it. Yeah. I was gonna watch all, including the Alien vs. Predator movies, and Godzilla Fest got the best of me. I just didn't have the time, but the Predator, I had no expectations because I'd never seen it before, and I did not go to see it in the theater like I usually do. And it was pretty, an unremarkable cast. It was, you had the Alpha Predator, I guess, that came out in the end to wreak havoc. But yeah, I just think, after watching the first three back to back to back, this one was a little anticlimactic.
I have to agree with you, Chief.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's just bad.
even Olivia Munn, I'm a fan. Not a big fan, but a fan. Even she couldn't save this movie. What was her role? What purpose? Anyway, I won't even get into it.
Well, she's like a scientist, but then she like grabs a gun and runs after a predator and does all this crazy stuff. And it's like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, she was pretty damn resourceful for a scientist.
Yeah. Well,
I guess she's a biologist.
I heard and read a bunch of stuff that there was a lot of changes to the script, that it was really supposed to be about a civil war between the predators, and a lot of that was all excised. That they were supposed to have scenes, and they even filmed some scenes with like what we think of as like the classic predators working with army guys against the giant, monster predators. And so I suppose you can maybe cut it some slack for a lot of changes being made in process, but you have to judge the final product, and the final product is just a big heaping pile of doo-doo.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up with a nice bow.
There is rumor of a Predator film in development. Director of 10 Cloverfield Lane, Dan Trachtenberg, set to direct a script by Patrick Allison. The film's plot is under wraps, so we have no frickin' idea what it's going to involve.
Well, have either of you seen 10 Cloverfield Lane?
No.
Is that the one where he kidnaps her and keeps her under the bunker?
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. I mean,
no, it wasn't bad.
It was quite a departure from the original Cloverfield.
Exactly. It worked very well. God, what's his name, Bob? The actor. He plays Dan.
John Goodman.
Yeah,
John Goodman, not Dan. Yeah. Sorry. John Goodman. He's a great actor, and he plays against type in this movie.
He plays a crazy mofo.
Yes, but not immediately.
He's like a good-intentioned crazy mofo.
Yeah. Good movie. So, who knows? Yeah, we'll see. Let me ask you guys this. We talked about this in the beginning of the podcast before we get into our censor sweep. If you could bring Arnie back into a Terminator, it's been done already, into a Predator film, do you have an idea of how you would incorporate that? If you want, I can go first, because like I told you, Jay and I have been talking about this for years.
Why don't you go first? Because you sound very excited.
Thank you, Walker. Very excited. Dutch is much older. We wouldn't go forward in time. We wouldn't go backward in time. It's today. And they kind of did this with Jamie Lee Curtis in the last Halloween movie. So they kind of stole our idea. But he's basically been hunkered down in this cabin in the woods, just going back to basics. He's got knives and arrows and, all manner of weapon. And, we go back and forth on whether or not the Predator finds him or the CIA contact him and say, Dutch, we need you to, help do this, that, or the other. And, we don't we play around with, there's a war with the Predators, or, it's just one or two of them on the loose, or it's Dutch's, son, or, kind of go back and forth. But it would be interesting to see him come back as, old man Dutch with all the knowledge, and one of the few people. I guess you could bring Danny Glover into it too. They could be roommates up in the cabin. Only two people to kill a Predator. But that's pretty much it. It's, just a shame that they never did more with that character that Schwarzenegger made so iconic.
And Adrian Brody would be like their cabin boy.
Oh.
It's funny. There's a video on YouTube where somebody made a fake trailer where Danny Glover goes and finds Schwarzenegger. They're both old,
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, I need your help. We gotta fight the Predator and
get to the Choppa.
And it's basically like the two of them going after the Predator again.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You know, I'm sure both of you, as well as everyone else listening to the podcast right now, has probably seen the commercial with Shatner and the Gorn on the couch playing video games.
Yeah.
I would do Arnold and Predator sitting on the couch playing video games, and that would be it for me.
There you go. Wacky?
I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you could go with it. Maybe Dutch all along has been running some sort of special ops group tracking the Predator, and maybe he discovers that there's a group of predators that have been, speeding up global warming.
Interesting.
So that making the planet hotter. So it's more, to their suiting. That's not a real word. Sorry, it's late. I'm tired. Making it more suitable for them to come here and hunt people. And so, he's got his team of people trying to figure out where their machinery is so they can knock it out. And of course, then they would run into actual predators, and hilarity ensues.
They could also release a pandemic.
Interesting. Good concepts there. Well, I tell you guys what, it's that time of the show where we get into our sensor sweep. This episode, our reconnaissance officer, Karen, has something to share with us. Karen, take it away.
Well, thank you, Larry. Mm-hmm. I am a big fan of Predator. And over the years, I've collected a lot of Predator stuff. And one of the things that I will share, and if you go to our website, planet8podcast.com. I'll have some pictures there. One of my favorite things in my collection is my Sideshow legendary bust of the classic Maskless Predator. And so this is like a half-scale bust of the Predator. Beautiful sculpt showing the Predator with his little mandibles open, all of his little spikes, all of his little hair tendrils, whatever you want to call them, hanging off of his head. It's a really, really nice piece, which I've had for many years. I think it came out in 2011. I was looking around on the secondary market to see what it's going for now, and I saw everything from like $350 to $500, so a little bit pricey to grab now. But as usual, Sideshow does a really spectacular job, so well worth it if you like the Predator. Or if you love the Predator, to go grab one of these busts.
As Karen does.
So, as I said, I'll throw some pictures up and people can take a look at it. And I hope they enjoy it. Maybe not as much as I do, but I hope they enjoy it.
They may indeed. Well, thanks very much for that, Karen.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.blogspot.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.